Story 1. Losing someone suddenly. Waking up one day and learning that someone is dead and gone is the worst feeling. You usually think that if someone is going to die, they will die slowly, and you will have a chance to say goodbye. Unexpectedly losing a healthy family member or close friend is gut-wrenching and just another level of pain. Story 2. Being depressed to the point of being suicidal is an experience difficult to fully convey. The best way I can describe it is feeling every negative emotion all at once, multiplied by 10. You can feel those emotions not just in your mind but in your body as well. It's agonizing, and unlike a physical injury, you can't just fix it. I would not wish that feeling on anyone. Story 3. Becoming an orphan. Most people will experience it eventually, but I wasn't prepared for how weird it feels to not have parents. I lost my dad 15 years ago and my mom last year. I'm in my late 40s. Aside from just missing them, it's just hard to wrap my head around it. Story 4. The utter feeling of doom when you know you are dying. I looked at the attending nurse and told her, "I'm dying. Tell my family I love them." I felt the sense of finality, heard code blue, and then nothing. Thankfully, the emergency team was able to revive me. Story 5. A miscarriage. It is not just the loss of that pregnancy. It is also the loss of all the potential that could have been. All the dreams you had of holding the baby or the first day of school. It is like you imagined this whole life that was never going to be. Story 6. Anxiety I thought before was all just drama. But when I became an adult, I experienced what anxiety is. And it's not just drama. It's something that's unexplainable. I hope everyone who has this manages to calm themselves and looks for exercises on how to be calm during attacks. Story 7. Mushrooms. In my opinion, the movies and TV shows usually do not really represent it correctly. For the most part, it is a beautiful feeling, although I have had the fear a time or two. Story 8. Kind of off topic, but the variety of answers here acts as a good life lesson. There's a lot of things you can't understand unless you experience them yourself, so we really shouldn't make assumptions about others and what they are going through. It just logically doesn't make sense. Story 9. Panic attack. It hits especially differently when you know you're having a panic attack. Your leg and arm muscles involuntarily tense, and you can't move for 10 minutes. Story 10. Loneliness. And you can even be lonely in relationships. It's one thing not to have a physical person in your life to do things with, share things with, talk to, and stuff like that, especially after you've had them in your life and maybe lost them for one reason or another. But there's another side of loneliness where you feel like you're going through life alone, even if you're in a relationship. So, it's like you're pulling everything rather than having help getting through life. And even if that help would only come in the form of being able to talk things through freely. Story 11. Heartbreak. You always see stuff about breakups and heartbreak in media, including television, movies, and songs from the time you are a child, but I feel like it is still downplayed and nobody really tells you just how bad it can be. That can change you, completely altering how you see the world. Story 12. The debilitating effects of hopeless depression. People often say, "Depression? Yeah, I've been there. You just need to power through and get over it." These are individuals who have not experienced the depths of hopelessness. Story 13. Being brokenhearted. At first, love is all flowers and butterflies, but when the time comes that one falls out of love, the other will feel too much hurt that's unexplainable. That's when you feel betrayed by the world. Story 14. Bonding with your own child. I was an uncle for most of my life and had a house full of siblings growing up. I thought I knew what people described when they said, "There's no other love like that of your own child." And I dismissed it thinking the love I had for my nieces and nephews was the same. Then my son was born. Instantly, my life and soul changed. My life was honestly kind of aimless, albeit successful in a lot of ways, but I could never find the one thing that truly made me whole and happy. My son made me not only whole but the happiest I have ever been in my life. I have never loved something more in my life. I have never looked forward to something more than being his dad in my life. He literally made life incredible for me, and I will spend my entire life trying to repay that to him as equally as I can. When they say nothing can equate to that, it's not just cliché talk from biased parents. It's absolutely true. Nothing I had ever done or have done since has been as incredible and good for me as my son being in this world with me has been. I literally love him more than anything, including myself, in this world. Think about those words. I had never had something before him that I could honestly reflect that on. Nothing. Story 15. Addiction, no specific addiction, whether it be to drugs, love, etc., is something that no one will ever completely understand unless they've experienced it themselves. It's often simply described, mostly because addiction is almost always in reference to substances. However, there is so much complexity and insanely unexplainable feelings that come with any addiction that even as an addict myself, I can't find the words to describe it. Story 16, having an MRI with contrast. I've had tons of them due to having a brain tumor. It feels like someone is pouring hot water starting at your head and it goes all the way to your legs. So strange. Story 17. Not me. I had a male friend who was sexually assaulted by another man in a bar. He was really affected by it. For weeks, he questioned if this was what women in the Me Too movement were talking about. When he asked if I had a Me Too experience, he was blown away when I revealed I had several. He truly saw what women go through. He's doing better now, but he said it literally changed his life. Story 18, holding your first child. I always thought that was some sappy thing everyone said just because they have always heard it. However, when I held my first child, it was a feeling I will never experience again. Story 19, scuba diving. When you reach the stage where you are comfortable diving, if you have been away from it, that first few seconds after jumping in, it is a feeling of home, of releasing a breath you did not know you were holding. A moment of pure happiness and peace. Story 20. Learning to live a life that's worth living after escaping domestic abuse is transformative. The sensation of liberation from what seemed like emotional shackles is the greatest feeling I have ever experienced. I am my own person. I no longer belong to someone else. Story 21. I once hiked to the summit of a challenging mountain. The exhaustion and awe I felt when I finally reached the top and saw the breathtaking view were indescribable until I experienced it myself. Story 22. Anhedonia is a condition that results from a chemically or brain disorder-induced state, and it has persisted for several years. I cannot fully describe what it's like to feel completely detached, experiencing neither fear nor any other emotion. Recovery has been slow, and it only occurs at the very extremes. Story 23. Losing both of your parents at an early age comes with an intense feeling of loneliness and awareness that you do not have anyone who unconditionally loves you that you can fall back on. It has been 12 years, and I still miss my mother desperately when I am ill or very overwhelmed. Story 24. The feeling of being at a NASCAR or NHRA race is something people must experience to understand. People have no idea just how loud those cars are until they are there in person. You feel the constant rumble of the engines at NASCAR, and you feel your organs literally shake at NHRA. Story 25. Do not take this as an endorsement. It kills too many people. For me, during an 8+ year battle with insurance to fix 12 pinched nerves and 5 spinal cord compressions, my answer is and will always be fentanyl. Story 26. Here is the revised text with corrections suitable for reading by Azure Text-to-Speak AI. Finding out your parent has lied to you for your whole life and betrayal from that parent. We're taught that our parents are essentially God. Where do you go when it's all been a facade? Story 27. Having your mother not recognize you for the last 4 years of her life is a profound experience. You grieve while they are still alive. It feels selfish waiting for her to pass away, knowing she wouldn't want the loss of dignity. Then, when she passes, you have no idea how to feel. Something I'll never comprehend or get over. Story 28. Losing a loved one who was your everything and having to pretend to have a life after the loss, and being abandoned by anyone who said they cared and were there for you. Story 29. When giving birth naturally, that precise moment the head is fully out and the big push that gets the rest of the body out. My God, I've never experienced anything like it. There's the obvious physical relief of pressure. For a split second, a relief of pain. You can suddenly breathe with your whole lung capacity. At the exact same moment, there's a rush of emotion. You did it, the baby is officially here, Your body is right at the edge of giving up, but you're so desperate to use whatever energy you have left to grab that sweet baby and inspect every tiny detail. It's an insane moment. Disclaimer: bringing a baby into this world, no matter the method, is a feat in and of itself. I've had a medicated birth with an epidural, a 100% natural birth, and a C-section. I'm not in any way saying natural is better or more noble, just that it is very different, inexplicable, crazy. Story 30. A culmination of having 2 slip discs in my lower back and the torture. I do not use that word lightly. I experienced at the hospital because they didn't believe me. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone, and I cannot describe it. It gives me nightmares. Story 31. Having your heart medically or chemically stopped to reset your heart rhythm with an adenosine injection is an experience like no other. Imagine being wide awake and aware, feeling your heart come to a complete stop, watching the doctor, hoping and praying that your heart starts again. Those are the longest 20 seconds of one's life. Story 32. Having a severe spinal tap headache. It's akin to the pain terminal brain tumor patients experience. For the 2 weeks I had it, I thought I was going to die. Story 33. When you start planning while windsurfing, you harness the power of the wind with your arms, using the wind in the sail as a counterbalance to your leaning backwards as you glide along the water. When you first learn to windsurf, you fight the wind and it's tiresome. Once you learn how to control the wind, it feels like you become one with the wind, and it's so magical to experience. Story 34. Becoming a parent, especially with the first child, is a transformative experience. When he or she comes out of the womb, you can quite literally feel your life changing right before your eyes. It's a physical sensation, blending nervousness, excitement, exhilaration, and a profound realization of, oh shit, this being is relying on me to survive. Story 35. Mourning the physical death of someone you love and the relationship you once had, while also watching the new version play out, thriving. I'm talking about my favorite person making the transition from male to female. It is a hell of a ride, and I don't know how to explain the feelings. Story 36. For me, currently, it has to be losing weight. I started exactly a month ago, counting calories and hitting the gym, and I am down almost exactly 10 pounds. It is not a drastic loss compared to the ones on TV, but it is still a lot, and I have noticed a big difference in the way I feel and do things. I used to feel that picking up things from the floor was a struggle, but now it isn't, although I still expect that struggle. I went from 250 to 240 in a month. Story 37. Gender dysphoria, or feeling like your body isn't matching your actual gender identity. I've never experienced this, so I truly can't imagine what it feels like, but I bet it really is difficult. Story 38. Tripping on psychedelics, especially a solid trip, like 4 grams of mushrooms or 2 tabs of LSD kind of trip, delineates a clear before and after in one's life experience. There is life before that trip, then there is life post-trip. Story 39. Addiction. Without the experience, it's hard to understand why someone would continue to cause harm to themselves and others despite knowing the problems and making efforts to stop. It's easy to assume that they are just weak and haven't actually tried. Story 40. You know when you say, if only you knew, if you went through what I went through, I would never want that for someone else. After I live through something, that's the last thing I would want for someone to understand me. Them knowing through experience just to understand me. And this feeling is just like making tacos incorrectly. Story 41. I think drugs in general are going to be a popular answer. You get these wonky depictions of what to expect from Hollywood. Every drug I've ever indulged in, which has been many, it's never been anything like the real deal. I notice this is the worst with psychedelics, but it applies in other places as well, such as the Not Even Once campaign. I'm in recovery now, but this one is a no-brainer for me. Story 42. Becoming aware of yourself and the world around you leads to alignment that brings enlightenment. The first feeling that I couldn't describe, yet sensed it was something that you should share with others, is the loss of someone you truly loved and cared for in this life. Story 43. Depression. Snowboarding in powder, you have to reach a certain level to be able to do it, but when you are just floating there, flying down the mountain, it's pure euphoria for me. Story 44. Having this heartache knowing something you like is going to be gone. It brings physical pain to sometimes think about how I lost him. It also brings physical pain to think of having fun with him one last time. Thank God I didn't. I think I would have just sent him home from being embarrassed by crying so much. We were friends with benefits. That feeling of losing something you didn't know you liked until it was gone. I knew I was going to hurt, but I didn't think I'd cry like 3 days in a row over it. I didn't think my chest would feel like it's weighted down or heavily aching. Also, the feeling of watching someone drop you instantly when you thought maybe you meant more. I can't stand dating anymore. I'm tired of falling for guys who drop me in a heartbeat once they find someone else or get busy and don't want to continue things. The feeling of knowing you're not good enough for them. I was 3 checks away from being his ideal woman. I would have worked on myself so hard if I knew I had a chance. Also, like the feeling of having to live with your last time with them when you don't know it at the time was your last time and there's no chance of ever seeing or touching or being with them again. That feeling knowing one day he's going to find exactly what he wanted, but it won't be you. I'm only proud of myself because for once I stayed until they left. But it was really hard. It's been really hard. Also, like that feeling of regretting not taking the chance to have one more moment, but knowing it's for the best even though you mentally begged for one more moment. I told myself at first I'd take it, but then realizing I'd probably cry the entire time made me back out. Also, the feeling of knowing this cycle with men will never end because I attract and am attracted to men who come from the island that has a giant red flag as its national flag.